Erica.
Well, it'll be interesting to see, as you point out, as we wait and we wonder. Caitlin, thank you. Out front now, Democratic Congressman Ted Lieu, who, of course, sits on the Judiciary and Foreign Relations committees. As we look at this situation between the president and the attorney general, Republicans have long been protective of Jeff Sessions, but that may be starting to change. Take a listen.
Important office in the country, and after the election, I think there will be some serious discussions about a new attorney general.
Serious discussions after the election. Meantime, Senator Chuck Grassley, who of course chairs the Judiciary Committee, said yesterday they'd be able to take up a new nomination this year. Do you foresee a new attorney general before the end of the year?
Yeah. Thank you, Erica, for your question. I believe that if Donald Trump either pardoned Paul Manafort or fired Attorney General Jeff Sessions, that would cross a red line. And he would be firing Jeff Sessions because he wants to make sure that he's got someone else in place that can run interference with the Mueller investigation. That would constitute obstruction of justice. I think that's why Donald Trump has not fired him yet, and I hope the president does not do so in the future as well.
So that's your red line in terms of obstruction of justice. But do you want Jeff Sessions to stay on? Do you support him at this point as Attorney General?
I do. I think Jeff Sessions has pushed back against the president in terms of maintaining the independence of the judiciary and the judicial department at the Department of Justice. I also want to note that Donald Trump tweeted basically an enemies list and asked Jeff Sessions, the Department of Justice, to go after those people. That's completely disgraceful. But what makes America great is that our law enforcement personnel took an oath to the Constitution, not to Donald Trump. They're going to follow the Constitution no matter how much the president yells and screams.
So as you point that out and you talk about the fact that you do support the attorney general, you have been critical of him in the past. I'm just going back to my notes here and statements, especially about meeting with Russian officials. You've said either you're lying to the U.S. Senate or you're lying to the U.S. House of Representatives, looking at his different testimony there. Are you still in the same place when it comes to your feelings on Jeff Sessions when we look back at those past comments?
Yes, I am highly critical of Jeff Sessions. I think a number of his policies, especially the xenophobic anti-immigrant policies, are bad for America. But in terms of what he's doing now in preserving the independence of the Department of Justice, that's a good thing. He's pushing back against the president to maintain the integrity of the professional agents and prosecutors at the Department of Justice. And that's why I think it'd be a red line if the president tried to fire Jeff Sessions.
Red line if he tried to fire him. Let's talk a little bit about Paul Manafort. A lot's been made about whether the president may not grant a pardon to Paul Manafort. That's also a red line?
Absolutely. The reason that the president would want to pardon Paul Manafort is not because he thinks Paul Manafort should have been convicted of tax fraud and bank fraud. It's because he doesn't want Paul Manafort to flip on him and to give information to the government. That also would be obstruction of justice if the president pardoned Paul Manafort, and I hope he does not do that as well.
You've never been one, as we know, to shy away from criticizing the president, from letting him know how you feel. You have talked about impeachment in the past, even sort of taunting him on Twitter about it. And yet, this is something that we're not hearing much from Democrats these days. Why the step back from talking about impeachment when it was such a talking point for so long? Is this a concern about political liability?
I have not said that the president should be impeached. What I have said is if after the investigation of Special Counsel Mueller is done and we look at it and there's evidence of conspiracy or collusion with the Russians, then yes, the president should be impeached, or if he committed other crimes. So right now we know that Michael Cohen testified under oath and implicated the president in committing 2 felony violations of the campaign finance laws. That's very serious, and the House Judiciary Committee needs to hold hearings to see if the president committed 2 felonies, in particular because the Department of Justice has issued guidelines saying they're not going to indict a sitting president. So now it falls back on the Congress to do the investigation to see if the president, in fact, committed those 2 felonies.
What are your thoughts on the news of today about Alan Weisselberg being granted immunity in terms of that, in that case against Michael Cohen?
It is very striking to me that the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York has granted immunity not just to Alan Weisselberg, the CFO of the Trump Organization, but also to 2 other individuals, David Pecker and Dylan Howard. It tells me that these prosecutors are very intent on prosecuting felony violations of the campaign finance laws, and that's a good thing because our democracy depends on us upholding and enforcing the campaign finance laws. And for the President of the United States to be implicated in 2 of these felonies, it is a very major deal, and that's why Congress needs to hold hearings on this issue as soon as we come back from recess in the House of Representatives.
Well, we will look forward to those hearings as well. Congressman Ted Lieu, appreciate it.